All right, folks, we're back here with turn 5 of the Central Powers, and you can see here the Italians had joined the Central Powers in the war and moved their troops to the front. One of the nice things about when you just join the war like they did, they can set up their troops any way they want to. So they set up right on the border here and did a quick strike across the border, since all there was really holding the border was some cavalry, which wasn't any use on up here. So they came across and hammered one unit, demoralized it with a 3-to-1 attack, pushed it back, and then they eliminated one other one that's right there, that's across the border. You can see right there, the 353. So it's looking a little bad at the moment for the French, but they still have their turn, and they have lots of reserves just parked up there on the front doing nothing. So they probably will strip some across and move them down here to create a new front and take care of these upstart Italians. Now over here on the Serbian front, there was a 3-to-1 attack, and the end result was had an exchange, and they lost their city, and the end result was, well, the Serbians are now out of the war, and the Germans lost their units that were down there during the attack, which is okay. They can lose those, and the end result is they'll probably get them back here at the end of the turn in the replacement. The railroad is parked right there. It can't advance any farther because of a little thing called snow on the eastern front, and you can't build any railroads. And once again, the supply lines are cut to within 4 hexes of your railhead or of your border, which is kind of a pain because up here it's not so bad because, you know, we do have within 4 of the borders here, and then 4 of that railhead that's in Warsaw. So that's where we're parked at the moment. So we do have supplies up here, but until the weather changes and we can push on, this campaign's kind of stalling out a little bit. Speaking of campaigning, the Austro-Hungarians did get the corner flank of a unit and eliminated them with a good 3 stack cores. So about, was it 12 different units hit them and took out a corner there right next to that D right there. There was a unit, so they took those guys out. And over here, the Germans got the corner flank of this line. They braced, basically, before the line could be shorn up, they did split. So the line is broken here, and it's looking like the southern front's not looking so good at the moment. So that's kind of a problem because they're going to be constantly getting flanked. So it's going to be a running gun battle trying to hold those guys off. And up here, once the Germans have cracked this corner, they are able to get around the backside, so they can start getting another corps, get on the line there and just start hammering the edges. Up here, this is a stalemate. The Russians have dug in, so it's a real pain right there. They're having a hard time. The Germans did attack with a 2-to-1 attack and got both demoralized, so they both lost the unit. But the Germans came out on the worst end of the stick because they lost a good unit, while the Russians just lost a mediocre unit. So that's pretty much what happened there. And so we're at the bottom of the Central Power turn, and we will be back with the Allied Power turn and just see what happens. And the Brits now have 4 units they can ship across. That's all they can support right now is 4 units. So they'll ship some guys over to one of the harbors right there. And eventually they're going to get in the fight, and obviously we'll see what happens with the French. All right, we'll be back. Well, hi everybody, we're back at the bottom of the turn, and it's getting kind of interesting. Over here, things have pretty much settled down. Everybody's digging in over here. The Russians did move up on the flanks, trying to mitigate those corners that are being, then they have a hole opened up here, so they might try to offensive themselves. Up in the north, down south, they realize that weather is in their favor, so they're going to fall back against the border and make sure that the Austrian Hungarians can't follow them, because they can only go so far from the border, and then they're stopped because of the weather. And then they moved up here a little bit. They're trying to basically form a pocket, from there over to here. They just need to get the troops to fill the holes in. And, they're being, southern areas kind of being protected by the Romanians, and in the distance from the border. So that is what's happening over there. And obviously, Serbia got squished, so we're going to be seeing the troops that were down here for the Austrians are going to be redeploying probably over here to this front. And we see that, like I said, France, there's the English. They've landed. The English have landed. They have hit the port. So that's where they're parked at the moment. And all the railroading assets that they had due to weather, because it is snowing on the western front now, they moved everything over here, loaded them up on trains, used their assets that they do have for training, and that just shows right there they're on a train. So they moved these units along the rail here are all on train except for those guys, which were there and just moved south a little bit. So they're going to try to corral these Italians. I don't see the Italians getting very far. They don't have the assets really to do anything but hold their own on the frontier here. They don't have big firepower. They're kind of like the Austrians. They're just more of a nuisance than anything. They made some short gains across the border, but we'll just see what happens there. So come springtime, when the weather gets better, I see the French probably going on the offensive down here and try to push into the Italians. And in the meantime, the best bet that the Germans and the Central Powers have is redeploy these troops, get them onto the Western Front, push as far as they can over here on the Eastern Front, and hope for better weather so they can push on beyond their the current borders and start building railroad when the weather gets better. So then the other thing is that unfortunately the Austrians are going to have to garrison these two cities right here. So there's two units that are going to be parked someplace in the backfield that can't do anything. So there's that. So with all that being said, we're going to be moving on to the reinforcement phase, and we'll determine what the weather is for the next turn. I guess I can do the weather right now. It's like Western Front. Oops, still snowing on the Western Front. That was a 6. And, Eastern Front's a 2. Here, we got the weather forecast here. 2. Still snowing. Snow. So everything's still locked down. Probably going to be locked down until March, most likely. All right, we'll be back.